Hello everybody, Anthony from Grandstand Sports Data here, and today's video will be on the top 10 quarterbacks of the 2022 NFL season. So this is based on our statistical model that we have had a couple videos on before. We had our midterm report for all the quarterbacks in the NFL, and then we also had a rankings video where this same model was used for both. So it's if you've seen those other videos, I would compare this model to it finds like the WAR or wins above replacement for the quarterbacks, and then we take that number and with the statistics that make up the WAR, and we put it in a nice little presentation, and it shows you, who the top 10 quarterbacks have been this year. Um, so let's get right into it. Okay, so before we get into the statistics, let's ask, how did we find these stats that are listed here in front of us? Well, first, we ran a correlation test between all quarterback stats compared to win percentage for the last 10 years. And these stats here that you see listed prove to be the highest correlated or have the highest relationship when it comes to wins. In other words, these stats have told the most accurate story on whether you're a winning or a losing quarterback. So after we ran the correlation test, we took only these stats, the ones that were high correlation to winning, and we ran what's called a regression analysis with these stats for the last 10 years as well. So then that will automatically assign weights to these stats in order to find out what the projected win percentage would be for that quarterback. So let's get started into our countdown, if you will. So just getting started into our countdown, we're going to start with our honorable mentions. These are the guys that just missed that top 10 cut. As you can see at number 15, you see Andy Dalton, who had a pretty good year. It wasn't a great year or wasn't a bad year. It was an okay year for him. As you can see in the far right on win percentage, he had a 495 win percentage, barely 500. So not the greatest of years, but he sat almost in the middle in terms of the statistical quarterback, sitting at number 15. As you can tell from seeing this model, well, I'm going to just show you what you're going to see going forward. So you're going to see the rank of the quarterback, which is on the far left. You can also see this rank over here at the win percentage, which is what we're going to be covering. And then these stats here all make up that win percentage. And like we said, they all have a different weight assigned to them that will spit out that correlation to winning, or spit out that, I guess we would call it a quarterback's WAR. So next would be number 14, which would be Geno Smith. Geno Smith has had a good year. He was doing great most of the season. He was actually in the top 10 of this model for most of the year and has, as of late, fallen back. As you can see, he's ranked number 1 in completion percentage and number 1 in terms of bad throw percentage. Now, ranking number 1 in bad throw percentage doesn't mean he has the highest rate of bad throws. It actually means he has the lowest rate of bad throws. So he's actually been pretty accurate. And as you can see, on target percentage sits at third in the league, which is 78.9%. Coming in at number 13 is Derek Carr. Derek Carr, some people had said he's not having a great year. His coach didn't really believe in him. And I think he's somewhat of a marshmallow leader. Like, he shows that he's into it. He shows that he wants to be a leader, but it's almost like I don't think guys take him seriously. Even if he considers himself a leader, I just don't think that people buy into him or his locker room buys into him. Next would be Justin Herbert. And I have to say that Justin Herbert's sitting at 12th in the NFL in terms of just these statistical categories with the WAR, the win percentage, however you want to call it. It has been an underwhelming year for Justin Herbert. A lot of people thought he was going to throw for 5,000 yards. He was going to, light it up and go crazy this year. And it seems to have not been the case. He's actually been, catching fire later in the year, but it hasn't really it didn't last all season. And the one thing I will say is that his weapons have been in and out of the lineup, but that's pretty much an expectation when you have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and so on and so forth. Those guys go down. That's just what happens. So he's made the most of what he has, but he hasn't been his best as well, if you would like to say it like that. So coming in at number 11 is Tom Brady. Tom Brady, I feel like he's been good all year. He just hasn't been a finisher like he's usually been. He hasn't been able to finish in the red zone. He hasn't been able to complete drives. I mean, people say that he has a bad offensive line, but he's number one in terms of pressure percentage, so he doesn't get pressured as much as other quarterbacks, and he doesn't get sacked as much as other quarterbacks because he's sitting at number one in that statistical category as well. So basically what you're trying to say is either one of two things. He doesn't get pressured as much as people think, or he gets the ball off real quick, and that's what I think it is. I think it's number two. He gets the ball off real quick. He always has. His whole career, he's been a person or a quarterback that has had a quick release, gets it in, three-step drop, boom, hits the receiver. So I think that those stats can almost, I would say, not tell the full story. He could be better. He hasn't been that guy like, number 1 through 5 in the league like he's been most of his career. And he hasn't been that this year. So let's face it and acknowledge for what it is. So let's get started in the top 10. So coming in at number 10, Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has had a pretty good season. As you can see, he's not one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league. He's sitting at fourth, so he doesn't get pressured much. His completion percentage has been middle of the road. His touchdown percentage has been about middle of the road, but he's protected the football as of late. Also, good quarterback rating. He's had a good quarterback rating for most of the year. Only thing is that 31st in terms of the 33 quarterbacks in the NFL when it comes to drop percentage, and that means that his receivers drop the football more than almost every single football team. They haven't been able to really help him out. But if they do catch the football, this guy has shown that he has been improving. Now, as you can see from the ranks down below, when you see weeks 10 through, it says final, meaning, the end of the season. So you see these ranks. This is just his win percentage, like his 10 right here, under the numbers, and he's finishing 10th. Well, this is what he's been each of the weeks. So he's been 12th in week 10, and it means going into that week. So he was 12th going into week 10, 14th going into week 11. So he's crept up into the top 10 on week 15. Had a minor mishap in the finale, but got it back together. Or going into the finale and got it back together. So, Trevor Lawrence being a top 10 quarterback statistically, or from this model, and only being in his second season, it's a really good look for him. It's a really good look for him. There should be major optimism when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars in their future. Especially, I sneakily like that Calvin Ridley pickup that no one talks about. I sneakily like that. You add him, Zay Jones, you got ETN. That's a good team. That is a good team going forward. Coming in at number 9, Jimmy Garoppolo. Hasn't done much as of late because of the injury. That's pretty self-explanatory. But just look at his numbers from what he's done this season. He's basically top 5 in terms of completion percentage. Top 5 in terms of passer rating because he's sitting at number 3. Top 5 in terms of interception percentage. I mean, he's almost done it all. He's top 3 in terms of adjusted net yards per attempt. Top 5 in terms of bad throw percentage. Hasn't had many bad throws. The only thing that you can say here and knock him for is the drop percentage. His receivers, surprisingly, have not really caught the ball for him all that well. But Jimmy G, in that offense, and I know people here, they've seen Brock Purdy play, and they're saying, this guy's unbelievable. Shanahan's the quarterback whisperer. I'm sorry. I'm still not going to let go of this. Shanahan's record from a from a from a from a display that I seen in one of the football games, it shows that his record was under 400 at the time without Jimmy Garoppolo. That's not a good football record. All right? I think that Jimmy G has really done well in that offense. Dare I say even more than done well. He's outperformed and he's brought them to Super Bowls. I can't say that he's brought them to the Super Bowl. That's a poor choice of words because he did well during that season. In the playoffs, they ran the ball to get to the Super Bowl. But Jimmy G can play. I'm sorry. If Jimmy G can play, there's no. I don't think there's a debate on that. And some people will debate yet. Some people, he's all right. No, I think he's good. I think he's a good quarterback. 9th right now in the league sounds about right to me. I think that that's a good place to put him, 9th in the league. Now remember, this is based on the statistical model. I may not have this. You may not have the Jimmy Garoppolo at 9. The quarterback whisperer Kyle Shanahan might not have him at 9. But the simple fact is just based on the statistical model, he sits at number 9. Coming in at number 8, and someone who I think that the model kind of missed on this year, it's Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts sitting at number 8. He's been top 5 in terms of interception percentage, so he's protecting the football. He sits top 4 in terms of passer rating, top 4 in terms of QBR, top 5 in terms of adjusted net yards per attempt, top 5 in terms of being accurate with his on-target percentage. The guy has been great. He's been great all year, and he's shown improvement. He showed that not only can he run the ball, which he's done great, he also can throw the ball. Thing is about Jalen Hurts is the injury, and the injury kind of, got him slowed down and made him stuck at 8. He could have probably been better. As you can see, in weeks 14 and 15, he got as high as 6th in terms of all the quarterbacks. Even before this, in week 10, I was kind of tracking this. So I track it loosely, I would call it, because before week 10, you don't really have enough data. I mean, you do, but let's face it. You played 9 teams. You might have even got a bye, so you played 8. It's just not enough. It's not enough of a data size for a full evaluation. So, but like I was saying, before week 10, he was actually up in the top 5, and came down a little bit, but then took off 9, 7, 9 again, 6. Good rankings. He's been there, and then he has shown that with Gardner Minshew coming behind him and playing the quarterback role, they missed him immensely. They just have. You can tell. The offense I can't say that it looks anemic, even though in one game it did, and in the other game they kind of did put up points, but it doesn't look like how it looks with Jalen Hurts. And number 8 quarterback in the league, I think that's a little low. I think he's been better than 8, but you got to face it. He hasn't been the best quarterback in the league this year. But 8 is low. He was in the conversation at one point about MVP, so we have to remember that, and that's why I think 8's a little low. Coming in at number 7, and I spit out my coffee when I seen this. It's Jared Goff. Jared Goff is top 2 in terms of interception percentage, which he holds on to the football and he does it well. He almost cracked the top 5 in terms of passer rating. He did crack the top 5 in terms of QBR and sack percentage and adjusted net yards per attempt. So the sack percentage really tells more about his offensive line. He also hasn't been pressured, as you can see. He's been 8.5 in terms of ranked in the NFL when it comes to pressure. He hasn't really been on target, so he hasn't been that accurate. 28th in the league with a 71.1 on target percentage, but still 7th, and it's got to be because he's protecting the football. It has to be because of that. As you can see from his ranks below, from weeks 10 all the way until today, and your final evaluation day, if you want to call it, he has snuck around that top 10. He snuck around the top 10 in terms of week 10. Then week 11, he only veered off a little bit. And then weeks 12 and 13, he had a rough one. And then after that, he started booming. He started booming and trending upwards. He actually cracked top 5, as you can see later in the year, which is, good for him. Good for Jared Goff. One thing you can say is that he's a quarterback that's made it to the Super Bowl. And I get it, he played in the system. But I mean, you kind of have to look back and say, he's a good quarterback. Like, look at what he's done. He's 7th in the league this year. I mean, if you were to compare him to the last few guys that we've seen, Jimmy Garoppolo or Jared Goff, I would pick Jimmy Garoppolo. But Jared Goff has, just from the numbers, outplayed him. Jared Goff or Jalen Hurts. I'd pick Jalen Hurts. But look at the numbers. It's saying Jared Goff. So good for him. It showed that he's a good quarterback, at the least a good quarterback. I don't know if it's any more than that, but he's functional. Coming in at number 6, Dak Prescott. He was hurt for most of the season. As you can see, he hasn't been that good in terms of his interception rate. He's been one of the worst quarterbacks in the league with his interception rate. But as you can tell from the model don't care when you're throwing a lot of touchdowns. And he has been throwing 5.8% of his drives have come off touchdown throws. Or his pass attempts, have come on touchdowns. Top 5 in the league. That is a big indicator, and it holds a heavy weight in this model, as you can tell. Because if he can throw a lot of interceptions, but he's putting the ball in the end zone, he's number 6 in the league. So I guess I would say I can't, with my eyeballs, throw the statistics out the window. I don't know if he's been a top 6 quarterback in the NFL this year. It looks like, just from based on the numbers, it looks like a lot of middle of the road, a lot of, average stats. People are going to say, well, Anthony, he only played half the year. Well, I would say that these numbers are all basically percentages, which it wouldn't matter if he played half the year. As long as he has the sample size, he could be number 1 in the league. He could be number 5 in the league. He could be number 22 in the league. That doesn't really matter. These are all percentages or averages. It would average out, no matter what his performance was. So he was hurt most of the year. You could tell from week 10. I think he might have been back by then, but the factor is that he didn't have enough pass attempts to qualify under the model. When he did, I mean, look at him. He's been basically, hovering that top 5 line most of the season. So he's been putting the ball in the end zone. He has been turning it over a lot, but I guess those touchdowns outweigh the interceptions. Coming in at number 5, and this is a personal guy that I like. I really like this guy. I think that he has it when it comes to. I think that when Brady and Rodgers are done, this guy's next. He has the it factor, and you can tell from these numbers. Joe Burrow's not playing games. 2nd in the league in terms of completion percentage. Top 5 in terms of touchdown percentage. Almost cracked the top 5 in terms of passer rating. He's been on target almost like no one else, sitting at number 2 with a 79.2 on target percentage. He hasn't had as many bad throws, almost cracking the top 5, and that's in that statistical category. Now, if you go to the ranks, he was hovering the top 10 in terms of from week 10 to week 15. He was, in, out in the top 10. And then after week 15, he said that enough is enough already. Enough is enough. He has cracked the top 5. And just based on what I like about him, I think he's the it guy. Hey, there's times, you know what? He'll have a $175 thrown going into the 4th quarter, down by 10, and then he finishes with 325, the win, and a few touchdowns. He just has it. It's like when it's go time, it's go time. And this guy has that. So, I would push Joe Burrow higher than 5. We'll have to see who's next, who's ranking in the top 4. But Joe Burrow's got to be up there in terms of my eyeballs, in terms of these stats. I think he has to be up there. So coming in at number 4, and maybe a little bit of surprise to some people, Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson didn't have a great completion percentage, but he he did have a lot of, production. That's that's being told here. Finished 8th in terms of touchdown percentage. He was middle of the road when it came to interceptions and middle of the road when it came to passer rating. And also his team dropped the most footballs for him more than any other quarterback. But he has been he has been, you can't even say pretty good. He's been better than pretty good. His team averages 10 less points per game when he's not the quarterback. That tells you something. I think that the model kind of doesn't do him justice because these are passing metrics where he's more of a running quarterback and he does more with his legs. I just see that he when you do things with your legs or you're a running quarterback, exactly what's happening now is what happens to those guys. So you're going to get leg injuries. You're going to get, you're going to get nicked up and you're going to be missing time. And that's the thing about pocket passes. Do they miss time? Yes, they do. They still have their issues. They can still get injured just as much as the next guy. But guy like Tom Brady, not barely missing football games. Aaron Rodgers barely missing football games. These guys are pocket passers, and you can just see it with more mobile quarterbacks that they get hurt, and they're hurt in the wrong times. You can see from his rankings, Lamar Jackson, he's ranked in the top 5 almost every single week. Most of this he's been injured, so it really hasn't hurt him. Usually because some guys will play bad, so he'll pop up in the rankings. Some guys will play good, and he'll drop down. So 4th, I think, is a little high for Lamar. Personally, I would have Joe Burrow ahead of Lamar Jackson. Still, Lamar has had a good year. He's had a good year. Not the greatest of years because of him being out and not being able to suit up and do what he could, especially in a contract year. So that must have hurt him more than it hurts me. But for my liking, just, looking at the top 5, I would go Joe in front of Lamar. Coming in at number 3, Tua. Tua's been good this year, but him as well, also been injured. He's basically tied and won for touchdown percentage, which I bet you no one was betting on going into the season. Number 1 in terms of passer rating, number 1 in terms of adjusted net yards per attempt. He hasn't been sacked much as he's ranked in the top 6 in terms of sack percentage. He's been on target. He's 76.7% on target throws, and that gets him, in the top half of the league, cracking the top 10. As you can see from the rankings all season, he was number 1 without a doubt, basically all year, until we got to right now at the end of the season where he hasn't been able to suit up and he hasn't been able to play. That really hinders him, and it allows other football players or other great quarterbacks to move up ahead of him. Also, he kind of slowed down as well. Let's not kid ourselves. He did slow down a little bit. He didn't look good in the last few games that he has played. Hoping to see him in the playoffs, though, rather than what they've been putting out there for the Miami Dolphins. You won't see him. It looks like you won't see Lamar Jackson as well, which that kind of sucks. Like, you want to see those guys. You want to see full teams ready to go, ready to play on the biggest stage. That's what you want to see. So it's unfortunate Tua couldn't suit up, can't play. Best of luck to him next year, but he did some damage this year. So coming in at number 2, Josh Allen. Josh Allen has been great this year. He's been great every year, and well, almost every year. Top 3 in terms of touchdown percentage. Top 2 in terms of QBR. A little bit of a problem with the interception percentage, as we have told you about Buffalo all year if you've been watching us. The touchdown percentage, the interceptions or the turnovers with Buffalo, they come too often, and they were coming at favorable times in the beginning of the year. Now, if they come at the wrong times, there might be a problem. He's also 27th in the league in terms of drop percentage. So his wide receivers are not really catching the ball like you may think they are. Also, another thing that strikes at me some people that are like, Allen's very accurate. He's very on target percentage, 22nd in the league. He's not as accurate as people think he is. Looking down at the ranks, though, he's been basically top 3 almost all year. He's dropped down to 4 a few times, but has popped back to 3 and up to 2 and has steadily stayed at number 2. I think it's been a great season for Josh Allen. I think that him, Burrow, and the next guy are the guys that you really look at and put in the tier of their own. And at least I would with my eyeballs. And I just, I'm hoping for the best for Josh this year, especially after the situation that happened with their football team. You could see that the NFL was kind of, I don't know, the NFL should have, they had this thing that came out today that the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs, if they were to play in the AFC Championship game, that the game would be played in Atlanta. So 2 outdoor teams in freezing cold temperatures in January go and play in Atlanta in a dome. Like, to me, that's not football, man. That's not football. Like, you just want to have a track meet between the 2 teams that are the most explosive. I got it. It's a business push, but is that real football? Like, that's not. What are we doing? It's a joke, but whatever. So coming in at number 1, I bet you're not surprised. Patrick Mahomes. He's been great. I mean, think about this. You took away his best weapon. Well, they didn't take him away, but you get what I'm trying to say. You get the picture I'm trying to paint here. You've taken away his best weapon, and then you've added, I guess, what would you call like Juju and these other guys that they added? I guess third tier players. So they're not like ones and twos. They're like third tier players, that give them good production if you can use them correctly, which they do. And he has lit it up. He's actually given a slightly more targets with Kelsey, but has spread the ball around. And he's become less predictable because he doesn't have Tyreek there. I mean, just look at his numbers. Sitting tied for first in terms of touchdown percentage. Second in the league in terms of quarterback rating. Third in the league in terms of sack percentage, so he doesn't get hit often. He's number 2 in the league in terms of adjusted net yards per attempt. And he's tied for 7th in on-target percentage. So he's actually accurate. He sits middle of the road in terms of all the other statistics, but if you look at the ranks, he's been number 2 and number 1 all season long and all year, or halfway through, since we've been tracking. I just think that I agree with it. I think that, like I said earlier, the way he's managed the team, the way he spread the ball around, the way he's playing football, I would give him the MVP. The reason why it's not sexy enough. People are gonna be like, "Oh, Pat Mahomes MVP." Like, well, come on, man. Like, but he deserves it. He's been great. He's been remarkable this season. Um, I I would say that he's 1, Burrow's 2, and then Josh Allen's 3. That's how I would have it ranked. So that's putting the model aside, putting the statistics aside. That's just from my eyeballs, and it's just my opinion. Everyone's got their opinion, but the model, the numbers, the ranks, all of this mix into put all the ingredients into your pot and boil it up. And this is what you got. You got Patrick Mahomes as the number 1 quarterback of the 2022 season. So, like always, would like to thank you guys for watching. If you like this content and want to see more, please subscribe. Also, hit the like button so that the YouTube algorithm can work its magic. Make sure to share it with a friend. And if you don't mind, comment down below on whether you agree with the model, disagree with the model, agree with me and my input. Just give us a comment. Let us know. We have thick skin. Nothing will really bother us. So like we said, thank you for watching, and until next time.